Fielding!
Yes, sir?
The dog's just sitting here whining.
He wants to play fetch.
All right.
Go get it.
He needs to choose the stick.
He needs to choose. Really?
Sorry, let me just answer that. Hello? What? Wait, slow down. Is he...
Everything okay?
Someone just assaulted our vice principal in the parking lot.
No, Benson.
Oh my God!
No,
What are you?
put it
What
away.
are you doing?
This isn't what you want. You don't know me!
Worked with some really crazy people. I've had some really cool parents in movies. You know, we got Rob Lowe, Julia Roberts, Sean Penn, Dennis Quaid. Like, you know, some heavy hitters, and been on some Netflix and you know, Stars and all those things. But it's really about just like focusing on the work and, you know, not letting that stuff get too crazy in your face.
Well, shoot, man, let's get right into it. I love that. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the second episode of the Ag Sports Podcast. And we have a special guest with us here today, or two special guests. We have our athlete, Ruben Hypolite, the second Maryland University linebacker coming from the state of Florida. Then we have a friend of mine, a high school classmate of mine, John Berchtold, doing big things out in LA, big LA, Hollywood, as an actor, writer, film director, doing it all, which is what we're going to dive into. And without further ado, John, thank you for making time for us today.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to come join you guys.
No problem, no problem.
Thank you.
As I said, our guy Ruben here has, you know, we're kind of highlighting our third pillar, what we like to call at Ag Sports, which is, you know, helping athletes find that outside passion outside of their respective sport. And Ruben has, you know, expressed that to us, and it's like, okay, what do we need to do? You know, what do we need to do to build these connections, build his resume, get him kind of geared in that direction. So, you know, we dive into our network of resources, and as I said, John's been doing it at a high level. I will admit, I wasn't
trying.
And I'm going through your IMDb, like, oh my God, you've done like the thing that kept scrolling and scrolling.
Yeah, we've been around the block. Look, you know, it took a minute to get there, but sometimes I'll look back and be like, oh my God, I did that.
And Ruben, I will give him his flowers too. You know, we talked a little bit. I know he's kind of putting himself out there a little more and more, and he's got his own podcast, running a podcast with his players and teammates, and also he's a poet as well.
So I'm up late at night thinking about what to post, no Malone. Just taking trips through my mind, cheesing about going provolone. See, I seen long days and I also seen long nights, but the work is what always kept my circle tight. See, I paid the price for this attention like a pay-per-view fight. Had to talk with the Most High to take over my life with all his might. Ended up feeling like Mr. Right. Bald-headed, head clear, dead center. I'm like the toast without the butter. They utter and they stutter for closure, but meanwhile, I'm already knowing that the wait is over. Poem.
The poetry aspect. I've been writing poetry forever. You know, I have a book full of poems, and then I just started like recording them, and I posted one of them. Like I want to say a couple weeks back. I got some great feedback on it, so definitely looking forward to doing more of that.
All right, y'all. One Speed Podcast. We back in action.
Hit one.
Yeah, so I run a podcast with two of my teammates. It's called the One Speed Podcast. We really formed it up over this past summer. We wanted to give people a different outlook on us as players. Just talk about day-to-day things, but do it as collegiate players. You have podcasts out there like the Pivot, I Am Athlete and stuff like that. But I think all those podcasts are like, professional athletes, but there's no podcast out there that's like collegiate athletes that can, produce it and then put it out there for people to watch it and then, actually enjoy it. So we started that up. And it's progression, daily. And yeah, definitely looking forward to just getting myself out there more on that aspect and just showing my different talents and showcasing them. So
That's amazing. Congrats on all that. This, like, the way you described your podcast too, like, I feel like a lot of these public facing careers, like the audience, the general audience will sort of pigeonhole you and be like, well, that's what you are, that's what you do. And so to have like a space where you can talk about what it's like off the field, who you are as a person, and the sport as a whole, like that's so cool. And also the poetry, that's amazing.
yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And I guess we can start there. John, I think majority of work is acting, and Ruben has expressed that. But I kind of want to start with writing because that's what Ruben's doing right now with the poet. And I saw you have writing credits for Kaleidoscope Kids and research. But can you give us kind of some game on that side of it before we dive into the acting?
Yeah, well, I mean, since I was a kid, acting was always like the main thing that I wanted to do. And then it wasn't until I don't know, it's like 6 years ago I discovered that I had like a true passion for writing. And so those things that you mentioned were like sort of little projects I did with friends just to sort of like test the waters, like, oh, I've written this thing, and I, link up with the director and he's looking for a specific thing. And I'm like, oh, well, I got this, and that's how those things came to be. And I realized that like I had a true passion for writing, and so like I made it part of my day to day. Like I love to write. I wake up in the morning and I'll write, and
Wow.
I'm sure that's like the same for you. Like I feel like as long as you're doing it, like it's always there. Like it's always there inside of you. So like, the more you do it, the more you're working on the craft. So yeah, I mean, like I'm in a space right now where a goal of mine, like a real goal that I'm actively pursuing, is to get a feature film that I've written actually produced and made. I'll star in it too. We'll see. But like it became that thing of like, oh well, I was doing it as a hobby,
Right.
and it was sort of my own personal thing that I love to enjoy. And then I had a realization. I'm like, well, I mean, you write screenplays for the screen, so they're not doing any good sitting on my computer. So yeah, now I started to get it into people's hands and eyes, and which is a really scary thing, Ruben. I don't know how you feel about like when you actually share your writing. That is scary. To me, I'm like, I feel so embarrassed. I'm like,
Yeah.
it probably sucks. Like, so don't get your expectations high, but you like sort of have to,
Yeah, I think to that point you said, just it being scary. I was really never that type of person. Like I always wear everything, on my sleeves. Like I'm always very open with stuff, and if I enjoy it, then I know somebody will. So like somebody who thinks it's like kind of in the same wavelength as I think, as far as like what I'm saying or like the message I'm trying to get across, like they'll pick up on it, and then like all I need is one person, and then one person will tell two people, then two people will tell five, and five will tell 20, and like that's how it builds. So I mean, like that's just my personality. Like for people who know me, they just know that I'm very open about things and situations, and like if I feel like I need to share it, then I will. And then whoever likes it will give feedback, and they'll ask for more, and I'll just give more of it. So yeah,
that's great. It's sometimes it takes that one person, but to just get it out there is like a huge thing. It's part of the craft. So I need to be more like.
I was about to say the same thing.
On a boulevard, I'll be like, "Who wants to read my script? Give me $1 billion, please."
I know Ruben and I spoke not too long ago about that, and same thing. Keep that for the rest of your life, man. That's big, and I know that's actually perfect because Ruben expressed to us he wants to kind of make his own short film, and I need to start writing more myself as well. So can you give us kind of like just how do you even start writing for a show or a movie or whatever it may be, film?
I mean, it's crazy because especially like I live in Los Angeles where everyone has a script they've written, you know, like
Mhm.
everyone's writing something all the time. And then it took like one person to be like, well, just make it, like make the thing, which is obviously easier said than done.
Mhm.
But like a short film is an amazing place to start, especially because like Ruben, are you also you're interested in acting as well, or like filmmaking or
Yeah, I'm interested in, the acting portion really,
yeah.
because like I said, I have a great personality. I'm not being like self-centered or anything,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah, I'm just very confident in my like personality and my ability to, get in the character. Like, I play a sport where like I have to switch into character like every weekend, and then not only that, but just from growing up, just being around a lot of people. Like I used to make fun of coaches, like when I was playing sports and stuff, imitating people, and like like my dad, he's a really really funny individual. Like he's goofy at times, and like I get that from him. So I just feel like I can get in the character.
yeah,
I never had any experience with it, but like I said before, like sometimes you just gotta do it, and then
100%.
yeah, and then when you do it, like you'll understand where you can improve or like where you're great at, and then you just take that and then grow that. And then you
Yeah,
water that. So
yeah.
yeah, like
Also,
that's where I'm at with it. Yeah.
right off the bat, like all of that is going to be so beneficial to your acting career because, like I came out here and you think, okay, well, I got to be an actor, so I got to do the actor things. I got to get into class. I got to do all these things. But I always found that like the life experience and the other skills that I had always helped acting
Mm-hmm.
more so, not more so, but just in a way that traditional, you know, theatrical education couldn't provide.
Mhm.
Um, and so like, yeah, obviously your sports career is 100% gonna help you navigate this career. And also like, there's so many, there's so many things that like, there was a time where I was like going out for so many auditions for characters that played guitar, and I'm like, well, I should learn how to play guitar. It's only gonna help me book these roles. Did I? No, I didn't. It's really hard.
Right.
But like there's so many roles that you're gonna be going out for that are that is gonna like directly apply, and you can say, hey, I already know this side of this character. I already know this. I can hop into this. Um, so that's awesome. But then that's like even better too because um, like for me, I'm working on a short film right now, and I was telling Brandon this because we were just in a strike, which is thankfully ended. Um, but a lot of people were making their own things that were
Mhm.
SAG approved and these little projects just for themselves just to fill that time. And so I started doing that, and now I'm like way in the trenches because we haven't shot it yet, but like the strike ended and now I'm going back to work, and so
Right.
we're trying to, but the goal was like, oh well, I want to play this one specific type of character. Well, why don't I just like write a short film and get it made, and then I can do it, so I can just flex that muscle, and then I'll be able to have this thing to then present, or just have on my reel or whatever. Um, so I mean, the first thing was writing it, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, and that's like, I mean, I think every writer works differently, but like you just got to think of like what ideas do you think would be compelling. And Ruben, like you said, like if you're interested in it, then someone else will be. There's like an audience for everything. Um,
Nowadays,
and
especially, I feel like.
oh my god, and this short film in particular too, like my first draft of it was I think back in 2017.
Oh
So I
wow.
like, I like wrote it, shelved it, brought it back, rewrote it a million times, got notes from everyone. And that's something that was really interesting and helpful, was just getting feedback from people who um, understand it from the business perspective, understand it from the logistics of like actually filming it, that perspective. So feedback was really important. And then after that, it was sort of just like, okay, assemble your Avengers team and like who's going to help make this thing possible. Which is a challenge in and of itself, but I think it starts with like creating a story that you're really proud of, that will only once you present it to someone and they like it, then it's like go time. But it is stressful as hell. I will say.
Yeah, well, as they say, everything worth having does not come easy. Does not come
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And I want to get into, so as I said, John is a high school classmate of myself and Ish, our my partner here in Axe. And I remember specifically 20, I think 17. I'm in Cincinnati. I'm still playing, and I'm watching Manhunt on Netflix.
Oh my God.
And I see John, and I'm like, it's like the
Just-
Leonardo DiCaprio meme. And he's pointing at the
Yeah,
TV.
yeah,
At the time, I guess I was late because I texted Michelle, my girlfriend Ruben met NFL Films doing her thing. And I guess it was a few months late, and this was already public knowledge, like on social media. I guess I didn't see it. She's like, "Yeah, you didn't know
Why
this?"
would you like?
I'm like, "No, I did it." I was just so amazed, and I was like, it was just super dope to see. And just to kind of pivot into the acting portion of this, I mean, man, you're like I said, I was scrolling. You've been featured in a lot of things, and like you said, that was your start, theater and things of that nature. Kind of take us through that journey. I mean, coming out of Mays Landing, where we're from, small town in New Jersey, to doing your thing in the industry in LA. I mean, that's no small task.
Yeah, and congrats to you for also doing all that and starting Midland and everything.
Thank you, thank you. This is about you, John, not me.
Well, I mean, just, credit. But yeah, I mean, like, I think the first step is deciding, like, okay, well, I have this thing that I'm really passionate about that I love. I can't imagine not pursuing it. So the decision to actually go and pursue it is like, so it's big. It's a big thing, especially like, I was doing theater, making YouTube videos at the time, just as like a creative outlet, and that was always like facilitating that passion, which is always something that I always advocate for. Of like, if you have any creative outlet, then use it whenever you can. So like writing poetry is like exactly that. And to like never let go of those outlets for you, because that will be there in between your jobs, which is something I'm trying to get a handle of. My job's not spiraling to actually like turn into something productive. But
Right.
yeah, I graduated 2012 and went to school for directing actually. So I went to a school in Philly, University of Arts, and the idea was like to just get a well-rounded idea of every job on a set. So that way, once that time came and I was like on set as an actor, like I could just understand everything.
Mhm.
And that was really helpful. And then this like really weird thing happened, and you'll always hear this, but like every single actor's journey is completely different. So like there's no clear path. You can't ask someone like, oh, how did you do this? And like, well, this is this first step you have to take, and then this is obviously there's things that will be helpful, but like this is so like it's just so different in that like I entered an acting competition for ABC in 2013 and I somehow won, and they flew me out to LA, and it was called ABC Make Me a Star.
Hey.
And they showed me like I was like on the studio lots and had meetings with execs, and I was just like, oh my god, like this is I want to do this. I want to be around this, which is something I already knew, but then just to see it and be in those rooms. So Casey, my fiance, who is in casting now, we both were like, okay, should we move to LA? Let's go. So yeah, we packed up, we drove, and transferred to a school out here just to finish up film school. And those first few years were just like, okay, I had to know that like when I came here, it wasn't going to be all like film execs and movie studios and like, cool stuff. It's going to be, you're in the trenches now. You start from the beginning. I was always that kid, making YouTube videos and doing all the plays. And then you get to LA or a place like this and you realize like, oh, all of those kids are now here. And that's just something that you have to understand. It's like or just prep yourself is there's everyone here is so good. And so just the best course of action is just to always support people around you, while also protecting yourself. Because you're going in these auditions with the same people over the years. And so those first few years were about like building my resume, my credits in any way that I could. So, I was doing short films, I was doing like student films, I was doing first few things I booked that were not union were these true crime reenactment shows that will be playing at like 3 a.m. on the TV on the Discovery Channel, Discovery ID. And I was always the killer. I killed everyone in those shows. Always. But I do like horror movies, so I guess it's cool.
That's big for Ish. Our guy Ish is a big horror buff.
He knows. And then then 2017, I booked my first union TV job, which was Manhunt Unabomber. Or I guess that was 2016 or somewhere around there. And I flew to Atlanta to film that, and I was like finally like dead center in the action. Like I'd been on some sets, like big sets. I was like a background extra in the pilot episode of How to Get Away with Murder when they shot that in Philly. So like I had been around that, but this time it was like, oh, day one, you have a 3-page monologue that you have to say with a camera in front of your face, like, don't screw this up. And then it's like, okay, pressure's on. But so then from there, like the whole journey of like navigating this career is like getting representation, finding the right people for you. Who do you work well with? What do you enjoy? What type of projects do you enjoy? And like, you can't be too picky at first because you're just trying to build your resume. But it's just, staying grounded in like, what do you love? And always let that be at the forefront of all of this, because it can be really discouraging. But you always have to remember, like, why did I pursue this in the first place? And that should be enough to push you through, because I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Going back, you said you went to school. You're in school in Philly, and for you it was big to learn how everyone's job kind of how everything works on a set and all of that. How important would you say it is to be that way, getting your foot in the door as Ruben is? Would you say maybe focus on one aspect of it, or go all in and learn as much as you can? Kind of how I know there's no right or wrong, but what would you suggest?
I mean, my suggestion probably, if I had to pick, would be to honestly pick one focus. Like have that thing. For me, it was like acting is the focus. It's always the thing. When I had job interviews for like day jobs or survival jobs, I would tell them in the interview, like, just so you know, like I need to be able to leave for auditions because like this is something I have to pursue. I have to do this. But in the process, picking up and observing and learning as much as you can. I think having a focus, and this is what my manager tells me all the time with the writing, is that like I write too many scripts all the time. And he's like, you need to focus on one so we can excel that one and make that one happen. And I'm like, all right, that makes sense. But like, while you're doing that, I can still tweak these other scripts. I can still, I thought of something, or I learned something that will benefit this. Or if I watch movies, I'm always learning and taking things in. So like have that one focus, but don't put your blinders on. Like take in as much as you can during that journey. Because it's only gonna help, I think.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to like consistency. I think like the saying goes, like you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So it's always about focusing on one thing and then nurturing and watering that one thing, and then once you become a master at that, then you'll be able to venture out and try another thing. But you always have that that skill in your back pocket where like, okay, if this doesn't go, then like I know I can do this for sure.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to like what my coaches tell me all the time, like trust your training. Like when you train for one thing and one thing only, like you don't want to like fall into the mundane of like the ordinary or like the normal day by day stuff. But a lot of times that's what sets you apart from the rest. Being able to be consistent with like what you know how to do. So yeah, that's what I got from that. And I think like that mindset that I have will just help me in all the areas I want to get into.
And the thing too about like the film industry is that like it's just a massive machine, and there's so many parts, and like you'll learn this more and more. But like you'll be on a set and realize like, oh, I didn't know there was a job for that. And suddenly like I can understand the next set I go on, like I know what that is and I know how to interact with that. And so like even though you're focusing on this one thing, it's like everything in the industry is all like it's like a dance, it's like a choreograph. I'm sure it's the same with a game or whatever, in that like everything has to work together to like create this thing. And so like no matter what you're learning, it's always I think it's always going to be helping the main thing.
So you're writing a short or a film, your own film, or you have, and it has to be SAG approved. Can you like explain to us
Yeah.
what that?
Well, so it during the strike, if any shooting, I did a independent feature during the strike, which I was very grateful to have that opportunity to work during the strike. But that project had to have an interim agreement, which just meant because we were in a strike, like if I were to go and do like a studio movie, that would be considered scabbing and crossing the picket line. Obviously, I would not want to do that because I stand with my union. So there were projects that were small and independent that got an approval. Now, out of a strike, when you do projects, they're either going to be non-union or they're going to be union, which would be SAG, like a SAG project. I'm in SAG, so I can't really do non-union projects. I think there's workarounds for it, but like when you do a SAG project, or if you're making a project for yourself, just having it be SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild, you get protections on your project. But that also means like you have to provide, a certain amount of pay for your actors and your crew, and so it's just like it becomes a union job, which I'm not allowed to do non-union jobs really as a union member. But again, there are workarounds. But if you're not in the union, like when I first moved out here, I was doing so many non-union projects, and they were amazing to do because I was getting footage from that. I was getting experience, and I was networking. I was like meeting people, and forming these like genuine relationships because we're all just like making a thing together for the love of it. Because like non-union, you can do an unpaid non-union gig, whereas if you do a SAG project, you'd have to be paid. Like so that'd be the difference. So like Ruben, like you're not in SAG, right? So like you could make a short film and make it non-union, and then that way you could hire non-union actors, or you could do it yourself, and like that's what you would want to do, because like you get to like make it on your terms and make this thing, and then put it out the festivals and win awards. But really, like it's these new non-union projects are like, for me, for someone who doesn't like get discovered off the street and like immediately put in a $80 million project, those non-union jobs were essential in building basically the foundation of my career, I think. Yeah,
That's big. And you mentioned networking, and I know for you, it may obviously you've kind of been like you said, since you were a kid, you've been in the industry, theater, whatever it may be. So your surrounding like friends and cast have probably always been into the same things. For us and Ruben, playing football, the team is who you're around the most, and everyone's into a whole bunch of different things. So how do you suggest he kind of like surround himself with people in his lane? Is it like walking into the theater building, going online? What would you suggest?
I mean, it's a weird thing because like, when I moved out here and people are like, well, it's all about who you know, which is kind of true. I hate to be like, well, you got to know the right people, but like it does help. And I think just the longer you're pursuing this, the more people you meet, as long as you form genuine connections and you're not just like seeking out things from people. Because everyone tells you like, oh, well, it's all about networking. You got to network, which is like, so it can be stressful. For me, I'm like these big Hollywood events where like people would jump at the opportunity to be at, to like meet people, like who's in the room. Like some people are really good at that. I am not at all. And so but I feel like I've still have made and formed like really amazing connections. Like honestly, what we're doing right now is totally networking. It's like honestly just like finding people who you for me it was like finding people who I admire and meeting them through job after job, auditioning all the time, being in the room with the same people, meeting those casting directors. Like you'll hear it so many times, and this is the craziest times. It's like I'll get a job because of something I did 6 years prior, because it's like, oh, I worked with this person a long time ago, and I didn't know they were on the exec team of this thing who had the final approval. But it's because we, formed this connection like a long time ago. So honestly, it's like, I don't know, social media is really good with that these days. I have connected with a lot of like my horror people I look up in the horror space. Ruben, I'm a huge horror fan, so like I social media has been great because like I get that follow from someone I've looked up to in horror movies for so long, and I'm like, oh my god, suddenly I'm talking and like, oh yeah, let's meet coffee to get some coffee and just talk about your experience. I would just love to know what it's been like, which I love doing out here. I'll meet with directors and smaller indie directors, smaller, producers, just like hear their story and just get to know them. But yeah, it's just like I don't know, being genuine, because I feel like people talk about LA and it's like everyone's fake in LA, and I'm like, well, I feel like I love my friends out here, and I feel like there's genuine people everywhere. But you just gotta protect yourself. And
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing as far as just being genuine, because I think a lot of people nowadays they only seek out to like get to know individuals or people just so they can get something from them, and not really, hey, like for example, like if I saw a film of yours, like hey, like I really like the film, like can we just talk about the film and what you got into it, and like what made you get into it and what it took to make it, and like then that's when you start a conversation and stuff like that, and then that's when you just build it up first, and then later down the line, let's say you have a film coming up and I'm interested in that, or like you get a just of my personality, like oh he could probably fit this role. Now like possibly I could be extended an opportunity just by like having the conversation of your film you did, not by saying hey I want to get in a short film, like can you help me get in, like just off the bat.
yeah,
So I like and like I major in communication, so I use like what I learned in like school, like and apply
yeah,
it. It's all about framing. Like, you got to frame it to where like it comes off as like you really want to like genuinely connect first before you
yeah.
really get into what you really want. So I'm just big on that, and like that's really how you form and start great relationships with people.
Well, I mean, honestly, like I'm amazed all the time out here. Like it has not become like stale to me at all, and I don't think
Right,
it ever will, because like everyone I meet, I'm just like amazed by everything. I get on a film set, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. And
right,
then the people I'm working with or the people I meet, I'm like, oh, you get to do that. Like, look what we get to do as a career option. So, and that's great that you're majoring in communications. My fiance Casey majored in communications as well before she did directing. And I think she says that helped her a lot too. And she went into talent management first, which really helped her there, and then found her way into casting, and now she's been in casting for like 5-6 years. And she's amazing at what she does, and like her communication skills, like what she learned majoring in that, like totally helped, obviously. So that's really great.
And last thing I have for you, John, appreciate your time once again, is just where do you draw, your inspiration to just kind of keep going? I know you said it's your passion, but
Yeah.
Where does it come from?
Like I honestly am gonna say, like I draw a lot of my inspiration from my friends who are also doing this. Like I love to see my friends succeed. I love to meet someone and then watch their career grow. And especially the people I grew up with here, like came up with in the industry, like watching them do their thing and take risks only inspires me to do that as well. And it's just creating that culture of like uplifting everyone around you. It's like always super inspiring. And then also like in the horror space specifically, 'cause it's a big part of my life. There are so many. You just have so many passionate people in like genre filmmaking, and you have so many independent filmmakers who just make the movie because they want to, they like need to, and they want to make this thing, and you get that a lot in the horror space, and so I love drawing inspiration from people like that, and obviously like yeah, Oscar winners, of course I want to win an Oscar, you know.
Right.
But I would just watch a lot of horror movies, and it always inspires me. And I love just like keeping up with my friends and seeing what they're doing, and even just acquaintances or people I don't know that are in the same boat as me. Just seeing them succeed and book jobs and try new things only inspires me to do that.
Yeah. Also, another question for you, John, before we head out. So we film like we have a production like for our podcast. So the guy who records our podcast episodes, he works for our football team. Like he does like the hype videos and like the media and stuff like that. So everything's well put together by him. Like he does a great job of everything. So he has a camera. He has a camera. I think he has two cameras and like a lot of different angles that we use. So I started talking to him about creating a short film,
Yeah,
just like a minute, 2 minutes probably,
yeah,
with like a couple people that I know, like cast probably, something like that. But really, like I have a lot of ideas, but I think my main focus is really like just like Black culture, like things that happen in Black culture, and especially like like the young Black culture, like maybe 18 to like 25 probably. So just with that, like, what is some advice that you would give me as far as like, first of all, like how to come up with like an idea, just any idea that I like, how to come up with that and like put it on paper, and then how to like, just start by as far as like filming goes. If I want to
yeah,
get into that, like just how to take like the first step, and then
yeah.
I feel like I have confidence to like follow through after that, but just taking that first step.
Absolutely, you could. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I'm excited to watch whatever it is you
yeah,
make.
for sure.
Um, uh, I noticed a lot in. I said I just like to write and write and write, and so I've written like 17 feature film scripts by now, which is
Right.
like crazy. I'm a crazy person, but like I look back at all of those and I notice a lot of the same themes, and they always tell you write what you know. And so I found like drawing a lot from real life inspiration, even if I'm writing a movie about like I don't know zombies or whatever. It's like, oh well, I know this type of person and how they would operate in this space because like I am that person, and yeah, I want to play that part. So definitely like infuse as much as you can of your real life experience. That's why I always said like all that life experience, all that sports and life before acting and life outside of acting is only going to help build stories more. And again, if you find a story that is not your own or whatever that is interesting to you, it's going to be interesting to other people. Um,
Right.
uh, Next, I would say like there's a lot of good. Well, honestly, I would watch a lot of video essays on YouTube about like what goes into writing a script. I read. I mean, even though I've been doing this for a minute now, like, and I read a lot of scripts. I love watching movies and reading the scripts, like older movies that the scripts are available online, and just like watching and reading how it is translated from the page to the screen.
Right.
Just seeing how it's structured too. Like, remember how I was having like a really big issue of like how to write flashbacks, and I was like, well, what's a movie I know that has a lot of flashbacks? How did they do it? What did it look like on the page there?
Right.
And so there's so many scripts available online of like your favorite movies. So that was really helpful, and a lot of YouTube video essays and articles about like, oh, what does it take to write a really good effective thriller, et cetera, whatever. And then there are free script services that or like Final Draft is like the main industry standard, where you can like
Right.
it's a service like you write your scripts on there. But there's like ones called like Writers Duet or Celtics that are free that you have to pay for Final Draft. Um, but like I had Celtics forever before I got Final Draft, and it was like so useful, and I could write an actual script that is like formatted like a script, And it helps you. It tells you like, oh, like you can put your character here, and it just sort of formats it for you. So for me, when I'm writing something, when I start writing something, or I have an idea, I make a Google Doc, and I just like word dump, like literally just write every single thought I have about it in there, and then in that Google Doc, it'll start to like structure itself where I'm like, oh well, I know this is how I want it to open, so let me put this at the top. And I know I want this sort of scene, I want to talk about these themes, and it sort of like starts to build a story on its own. And then that way, when you start writing in Celtics or whatever, you have like an outline or a structure of of your story that you're gonna write. Um, and then yeah, like get your friends to read it, get people to read it, give you notes like, oh, what do you think about this? And then honestly, like talking about like your producer who films the podcast, like that's how it is. Like I would go to my friend and be like, well, I know you film stuff, you want to be a director or you do this all the time. Like, what do you think about making a short film? So you're already like on the way there. But those would be like the first steps that I would say.
Gotcha. Appreciate it, man.
There's a lot that goes into making anything.
Yeah.
Especially anything creative in the like film world. But like when you have it and like this is something that you brought people together to make, and it came out of your brain, it's there, it's tangible, you can watch it, like it's the coolest. You're gonna be so stressed the whole time, and then
Yeah.
and it's over, and you're like, oh shit, oh my god, that happened, and then you have it, and then it's edited and done, and you're like, it's just a great feeling because it's like always came out of the passion for it. So
And then you want to do it all over again. And then
you do it all over again, and you do,
right.
and you're like, God, I forgot how stressed I was, and then you're stressed again.
Right.
Like you can always, like my line's always open. You can always hit me up if you have questions about things. I'll try to
Definitely.
answer the best I can, because that's like honestly what it's about. Like I have, even in the acting world, like I worked with a guy who became like my big brother in acting, and I'm like spiraling, and I text him, I'm like, do you ever go through this? And he's like, yes, it's normal, you're fine.
Right.
And it's like good to have those resources just to like, be a mentor, keep you
grounded.
keep you grounded.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely.
Well, we appreciate it, John. Ruben, thank you for making time as well. Once
Thank
again,
you.
this is second rendition of the Act Sports podcast. John Berchtold. Let them know where we can find your stuff and yourself online and everything like that.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media at Johnny Berchtold. On my IMDb page if you're casting.
Never know who's tuning in, baby.
Right.
I just had a movie come out, a Blumhouse movie called The Passenger. If you want to watch that, it's on MGM Plus, and also you can buy and rent it elsewhere. And I had a movie called Doggone come out on Netflix earlier this year. Watch that too. That one's more wholesome. Dog movie. Makes you cry. And yeah, that's about it.
Appreciate it. Ruben, where can we find you?
Yeah, all social media platforms at Ruben Knows. That's my first name with Knows, Knows at the end of it. And yeah, that's where a lot of my content is. Also for the podcast that we're doing, it's called One Speed Podcast. So you can just type in One Speed Podcast, on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, things of that nature, TikTok as well. So we're all on those platforms, right? Or X. All right. Yeah, right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And you can find us here at Act Sports, X, Instagram, YouTube. Look forward to it. And you gentlemen have a good rest of your day. We're out.
Appreciate you. Yep.